joining us in the studio is financial expert Roddy, who founded the investment managers firm Cougar. Very good afternoon to you. Get my tongue around that one. Now, that's out of the way.
Not easily.
What do you think about these payday loans? Because certainly the Consumer Finance Association thinks they're a good thing, but a lot of people don't. Yeah,
well, inevitably, the Consumer Finance Association always sounds like a body that's there for your interest, but it's there to represent the lenders who actually act in this marketplace. And we've seen those lenders be particularly successful and skillful at persuading a lot of people to actually access these loans. In fact, so much so now that I even read today that people can access these short-term loans on their iPads or their iPhones or on their mobile phones in general, just at the push of a button. And I think this is going a bit too far, really.
Because a lot of the problems that people have is that they can't afford to pay off the initial loan, so then they get into a spiralling debt situation, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And I think it was a bit like Francis Coulson was saying. It's all well and good to say, take a deep breath. But actually, when you take a deep breath, nothing much changes if you're in desperate, dire straits with your finances. And normally the people that are susceptible, therefore, are the very worst people to take a deep breath and reconcile the logic in their head that this is an inappropriate thing for them to do, that the interest rates that are being charged are, relatively speaking, extortionate because they're so high. And by and large, getting advice then in those circumstances is becoming increasingly difficult to do.
So what is your advice? If the wolves are at the door, you've got a week till you get paid, and this is the only option that you have, how do you choose what loan to get and how do you manage it?
Well, first of all, I think there are very practical and straightforward solutions for all of us. The first one is that you can lean on friends and family and ask them for their advice and their opinion before you take such action to take short-term loans.
I guess the problem with that is a lot of people are embarrassed, aren't they? They don't want to go to the family help. They don't want to say, look, I've got a financial problem here. And that's why they turn to these companies.
Yeah, but it's a question of priorities, isn't it? Which would you prefer? There was a story, an example given today where a young man, 21 years of age, borrowed £100 and 10 months later owed the credit card companies or the credit companies £7,500 in just 10 months. And I think when you think of it in those terms, you have to say this is a ridiculously irresponsible thing to do. Talk to parents first, just fess up, don't stick your head in the sand. If you don't want to talk to them, you could always talk to people like the Citizens Advice Bureau and see what guidance they'll give you. And then finally, sit down and look at your finances, look at how you're spending. I meet so many people, Sam, over the years that just don't make budgets. They don't work from week to week or month to month. So you've got to work out how you're spending your money so you can get control over it and make some cutbacks. Pretend you're David Cameron, you're like the government, you're trying to make some cutbacks and start acting today.
Yeah, sound advice, not always easy to do. But what about the banks? How much responsibility do they need to take? So a lot of these people taking out these loans because they can't get an overdraft. It's too expensive. And believe it or not, these loans are actually cheaper than an overdraft.
Yeah, but then in that sense, it's about time I probably stopped bashing the banks as well, because in that respect, if a banker is saying, no, I'm not going to lend to you, it's probably because they don't view you as a good credit risk. It's not always because they don't have the money to lend. So they are definitely becoming stiffer in their criteria of whether they're going to lend to you or not. And that's not going to help you if you've got yourself into trouble. If you've got yourself into trouble, you have to go to somebody else, take professional advice, ask somebody how to get out of the trouble you're in. It may be that you have to actually say to your creditors, I can't pay you this money now, I've got no assets to give you, so we have got to come to an arrangement. But in other circumstances, I think we have to respect the fact that if banks turn you down, it's sending you a positive message.
Will that work with these payday companies? Do they listen to pleas of, you know, look, I'm skint, I can't afford to pay you, let's reach a deal?
Well, I think this is where government comes in, and there are clearly many politicians who are concerned, really genuinely concerned about the welfare of society that's increasingly dependent, not just on short-term payday debt, but on all forms of debt. And so the sooner the government actually says, and especially David Cameron, when you think of this in terms of the bigger society, what needs to happen with the bigger society is that people actually feel there is a genuine sense of responsibility locally and then regionally and nationally for these sorts of organisations that will support and help people to come to the fore and to help people not have to rely on payday companies.
OK, just lastly, a tough month for a lot of people, Roddy. Yeah. Christmas a few weeks away now, under a lot of pressure, you know, for people to stump up the presents that their children have been waiting for all year. What is your advice to them?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think we have to be, again, rather ruthless, I think, at this time of the year, because it's not just Christmas, Sam. That's a really big problem for people. You wait till the new year starts. January, February time is when all your utility bills and all your electricity bills and so on come in. So my advice to those people are sit down, look at what you'd ideally have your wish list of what you want to do for your kids, your friends and your family, and then make a new list and say, what can I really afford to do? And it's probably going to look very, very different. But I think friends, relatives, your family will always understand this. You don't need to put this pressure on yourself just because the marketeers and advertisers are trying to do it for you.
All right, Roddy Conn, thanks very much for your sound advice as ever. Thank you.